Hi everyone, and welcome to the third episode of our Tarot Course series, brought to you by 1millionnights.com. Now, in the previous episode, we took a look at the Magician card, where the Fool takes on the robes of the Magician and advances on his journey of knowledge, mastery, and awareness, where he learns how to master the four elements both internally and externally, thus acquiring the power of alchemy and, mind over matter. Now, in the third episode, we take a look at the next card, which is the High Priestess bearing the number 2, which represents the duality of our beings, where it is definitely not just what is on the surface, what is known by us, what is actively, consciously perceived by us that rules our lives, our destinies, basically everything in our existence, but also it is the unknown, unconscious, or better said, subconscious forces which are a very strong determining factor. And it is the meeting of these two elements, the internal and the external, the known and the unknown, which basically create our reality, create what we perceive as the dimension which we live in, basically. So the Fool meets the High Priestess because after taking on the robes and the journey of the Magician, he needs to advance to true wisdom, true knowledge, true self-mastery, because basically just knowing how the four elements which compose the world, which compose reality, of course from an alchemical perspective, may they be external or internal, is simply not enough to reach the highest levels of knowledge. Because, for pure knowledge, pure wisdom, you also need basically the power, the element of true foresight, which is intuition on one hand, but at the same time the ability to predict with the superiority of your intellect on the other hand. And why is foresight, why is intuition so very important in the journey of the Magician? Well, naturally, whenever you have a very strong desire, whenever you are ready to plant a seed of intention into the universe, you need to know beforehand how it's going to evolve, how it is going to grow, what it is going to grow into, and that requires foresight, intuition, life experience, and basically to know how the cycle is going to play out. And naturally, such a knowledge, such a level of wisdom and inner mastery doesn't come very easily, because on one hand it takes a lot of practice. The Magician has to repeat its own mastery, influence over the four elements over and over and over again until it basically becomes a reflex, until it is deeply woven into its neurological patterns. But on the other hand, emotional and psychological inner mastery is also very important, because it's not just the outside world that has a massive influence over us, but also how we personally, our beings, especially our subconscious, reacts to external influences, elements, events, or better said, the manifestation of chaos. Because, there is a part of our lives, of our destiny, our journey through existence that we can foresee, that we can control, that we can basically grip through knowledge and being aware. But there is another part which is basically due to hazard, due to chance, due to chaos, because chaos is simply a factor which configures our realities, our worlds, in a way which is very surprising, which is unknowable, unforeseeable, even perceivable sometimes. And of course, it takes a lot of experience and a lot of inner self-knowledge as in how we react to various elements, various circumstances, how we respond internally to events, happening in outer reality, to acquire sufficient understanding to be able to even intuitively foresee how chaos can basically change the whole game. And naturally, one of the biggest lessons of the High Priestess is that absolutely nothing is set in stone, no matter how fixed, no matter how certain anything may seem in this life. Nothing is 100%. That is the power of chaos, because our unconscious minds are basically our own connection to, the general expression of chaos. A lot of things can happen there, and chaos has certain fertile qualities to it where you do not know what the end result is going to be when, let's say, two elements which usually have nothing to do with each other meet and they form a unity. So that already creates something totally new, and that new is unforeseeable because, the laws, the general rules, the customs, may they be the laws of physics, may they even be the rules and general guiding principles of psychology. If a certain situation is or was unobserved, unperceived, unknown until that present moment, well, that is already the fertile and creative power of chaos, because something which never happened before all of a sudden came into existence and created something totally new. So when we speak about hazard, when we speak about the force of chaos, basically, it's not just destructive where, things can be struck down in an instant, broken up to their elements, but at the same time it also has creational properties where when two elements meet and there is a magnetism between them, well, they create something totally new. And when a being, a person, let's say, understands and somehow gets to know all of these internally, intuitively, emotionally, or a simple word to use is spiritually, but this kind of spirituality is not associated with religion, because this is where you're studying your own inner structures, the infinite ocean of your own unconscious mind, and no mind in the universe is like yours. So basically there are no general rules and guidance here, because you're basically studying your inner cosmos, and that is unique. So this is one of the main reasons why the High Priestess bears the symbolism of the number 2, because it is dual. It can basically symbolize the subconscious mind, where the conscious and the unconscious meet, and it forms a bridge between the two, a bridge where we can communicate with our own beings. Many readers associate the High Priestess with the wisdom and the divine intelligence of our higher selves, basically the superconscious, if we can use this term. And this approach makes a lot of sense, because by studying yourself, your inner forces, your inner cosmos, so to speak, it doesn't really matter what approach you take. Some people study it through sheer psychology. Other people might choose neurological studies, where they examine everything from a chemical and medical point of view, while others use spirituality, especially Buddhism and the ancient spiritual currents, which are a guiding force to so very many individuals. Well, it doesn't matter what you use. Self-knowledge always leads to the divine, because that is basically where everything sources from. And not really in a very religious sense, because even those people who study it from a totally non-spiritual perspective, let's say like sheer psychology or maybe neurological studies, well, they will ultimately lead to quantum physics. And quantum physics goes very much hand in hand with, the spiritual perspective of things, just that it doesn't, apply symbolism. It basically applies numbers, and calculations, formulas, the world of mathematics, basically. That is the language which deciphers it. But either way, we still end up on that quest of self-knowledge, self-discovery, looking at the divine inside of us. So a lot of readers associate the High Priestess with the divine feminine, and of course it makes a lot of sense, especially when it symbolizes the most gentle qualities of the divine element: wisdom, understanding, empathy, intuitive knowledge, emotional fertility, because the other type of fertility is more associated with the Empress card, the physical manifestation of the divine feminine. But the High Priestess is not physical whatsoever. It is really, really ethereal. It is just our inner worlds and our inner feminine energies which guide us and basically which keep us balanced. Now, from an astrological perspective, the High Priestess represents the symbolism of the moon, where the moon is the expression of our emotional world, the soul, the world of the soul, the dimension of the soul. And very many times it is also a heavy unconscious energy, especially in the sign of Scorpio, because that is the place of the deepest and most arcane mysteries. So especially in those decks which look at the tarot through the perspective of the Kalapala, let's say, a lot of authors associated the High Priestess not just with the symbolism of the moon, but also the moon in the sign of Scorpio, because that is what, from an astrological perspective, shows the secrets and the powerful and almost imperative influence of all of our unconscious patterns and how they determine the course of our destiny. Basically, if our destiny is written anywhere, well, that is definitely in our unconscious minds and not anywhere else, not in the stars as in from a physical perspective, but rather the influence, the imprint of the stars which lies inside of us. So it is the sky within our own souls and not the sky which we can see in physical reality. Now, the High Priestess in most graphical representations wears a cross, and that cross basically represents the meeting point of the conscious and the unconscious. As above, so below. Or it can also represent the four corners of the world meeting in one single point, and that point is the gateway to the most divine truth and secrets. And of course, it can also represent healthy faith, because healthy faith always questions itself, so it is not fixed, it is not rigid. Just like the phases of the moon and the lunations, it can change, it can flow, it can evolve, it can, basically reflect a certain moment in time and not necessarily be fixed and unchangeable through the course of one's life. That is not really very healthy faith, even though it doesn't have a very stable structure and foundation, because it is only internal. So many times it means that it cannot exist in a very idealistic, manifested way on the outside, because when it does, well, then we already have reached the symbolism of the High Priest card, the expression of the divine masculine. So basically the High Priestess represents something that is just the pattern, the schematics, and has not manifested yet, or doesn't exist outside of us just yet. Now also, a lot of graphic representations of the High Priestess represent the three phases of the moon: the past, the present, and the future. And this symbolism on one hand represents the course of karma and dharma, basically the wheel of samsara, where every single action will have a reaction. It will cause ripples to go through the universe and the ether in even a very physical way if you take a look at quantum physics. So very many times it can symbolize that something which we have done in the past influences our present, and naturally it will still influence our future as well. But knowing that, being aware of that, gives us the power to change it, fix it, upgrade it, etc. Now, a lot of graphic representations of the High Priestess also show two columns, because one column represents, her faith, because she is a priestess after all. So it is her faith, it is all her beliefs, but believing something doesn't necessarily mean knowing something. And this is the other column, because when we believe something, but we also know something, so we have the knowledge, but also the spiritual energy, that spiritual enforcement or consolidation to go with it. Well, that is the moment when we truly possess the qualities of the High Priestess, and that is the state of being, state of consciousness, when we affect the external world very, very much with our unconscious mind. Because when we do believe something and know it at the same time, well, that is already an alchemical reactor deep inside of us, which slowly but surely influences outer reality. As I said, that is already an expression of us having power over our unconscious patterns. And when it is us who write those patterns, who make the schemes, the plans, etc., of course, all of this done with profound self-knowledge, then we are already masters of our own reality, because everything in our lives is going to run according to our patterns. And if we are wise enough, we also leave an open window for the unpredictability of chaos, which can enter our lives from time to time and change and rearrange everything. Now, a lot of representations of the High Priestess also have the pomegranate fruit there. And on one hand, that represents the legend of Persephone, where she was tricked or lured into accepting to be in a relationship with Hades, with Pluto, so to speak. But of course, even this legend is highly controversial, because, according to some, she was tricked. According to others, it was her expressed desire because she fell in love with Hades. But it represents the ultimate balance, shadow and light, sacred and profane, celestial and telluric. And of course, a lot of graphic representations also have the scroll in her hand, which simply represents through her self-knowledge, she can actually gaze in the book of fate and know, or at least have a very, very good chance with great precision to predict the future, because she is so very in tune to the divine intelligence, to the very own unconscious mind of the universe, which is basically chaos and the shadows of the world. So basically, the High Priestess is one of the most powerful oracle energies in the tarot deck. She represents the ability to foresee the future, either intuitively, either through any specific methodology. She is someone who is very closely linked to the art of divination, because the Fool is not the High Priestess. The Fool basically visits, encounters the High Priestess, trying to learn from his sacred wisdom. So now let's take a look at the possible meanings of the High Priestess card. Well, in upright position, it can definitely represent the power of your unconscious mind, the power of your intuition. It can represent that whatever you're feeling, whatever you're dreaming, if you're receiving visions or or deja vu feelings, or any kind of divine guidance through the world of dreams, that is something you should definitely take into consideration, because either divine forces or your own unconscious mind, your higher self basically, is sending you messages and guidance. It can also indicate that you need to take a much closer look at the situation, or it highly depends on the subject of your reading, of your spread, because there might be elements which are not very clear, and you have to perceive them emotionally, intuitively, to get the big picture. For example, you may know all the details of a certain situation, but you also need to take into consideration how different people feel towards it, how they associate it emotionally, because that can actually help you predict the possibilities of the future, because emotions are a very strong determining factor of what choices different people make, for example. The High Priestess can also represent that you shouldn't take things very radically. It shouldn't be just black and white, up and down. You should take a very dual perspective, for example. It can also be the symbol of psychology, of someone's, inner psychological configuration, where it might indicate that the answers that you seek lie in someone's mind, the way they manage their emotions, their, for example, traumas, their past memories, their nostalgic moments, etc. And in some cases, it can basically represent an older wise woman. For example, a mother figure, an advice giver. It doesn't necessarily have to be a female person. It can generally symbolize someone that you know with a very sharp and strong intuitive sense, who is a very good advisor. But it can also represent someone who is specifically an older female with a lot of life experience. In reverse position, the High Priestess might represent a very well-guarded secret. And since her astrological correspondent is the moon, or the moon in Scorpio, to make it even worse, it can represent like something, for example, an information, something which is only known by a very few select people, which is very, very guarded, which doesn't want to see daylight because it can change a lot of things. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be intentionate. It can just represent unawareness. It can represent something internal, psychological, like a blockage, like a trauma, like a repressed feeling, like a hurt which someone doesn't want to express, or feelings someone doesn't want to be honest about. Of course, the intention is not relevant because someone can do it bad intentionally, but at the same time someone can simply withhold from expressing their feelings not to offend other people, and that is good intention basically. Of course, the High Priestess reverse can also represent inner psychological imbalance. It can represent when your unconscious mind is simply dominating your entire existence without you being expressively aware of this. It can represent some kind of inner pattern, unconscious pattern, playing out all throughout your life, and you not knowing that that is what's causing certain manifestations and events. It can also represent, for example, messages, guidance, information coming from beyond the veil. It can, in some rare cases, even symbolize that your intuition is wrong, or that your intuition is influenced in a very unpleasant way by either fears, a little bit of paranoia, or you projecting, for example, the worst case scenario into everything because you fear it that much. But because you fear it, you draw it, you attract it into your sphere of awareness. But at the same time, it can also represent the opposite, that you are holding some kind of truth intuitively, but you refuse to follow it. It can represent that, the right choice, the right option lies with your innermost feelings and not really the rational part of your mind, so to speak. Now in the following, let's take a look at possibilities of what the High Priestess can represent when she is combined with other cards. But as always, these are just examples, these are just possibilities of one of the most relevant symbolisms of this card combined with other cards. Well, for example, the High Priestess combined with aces, it can be a really, really good sign when your unconscious mind is attracting, without you being or being not aware of this, a very powerful, relevant, significant opportunity in your life, something that you desire, something that maybe you have wished for, a seed of intention that you might have planted. And that opportunity can be, for example, intellectual communication, if the Ace of Swords is there. It can be passion, it can be you getting what you want, the Ace of Wands, for example. It can be financial, material opportunities, the Ace of Coins. And naturally it can be love, relationship, feelings, the Ace of Cups. But when either the High Priestess or one of the aces is reversed, that can be a message that you're attracting it, but you need to be very, very aware, because the opportunity might show up in a second and disappear just as quickly. So you will have to immediately grab it, seize it once it appears in your life. Now the High Priestess, for example, with the Magician card, with the Moon card, or other cards which have a very powerful mystical symbolism, well, it can mean that a desire of yours might be coming into existence. The powers of the universe and fate and destiny have decided to grant you your will, but you need to cooperate, for example. The High Priestess combined with the Devil card may represent that you need to apply certain unorthodox tactics to get what you desire, if your desire is pure, of course, because otherwise it leads to bad karma. Because, there is a massive difference when you manipulate someone or a situation in a very gentle manner where it harms absolutely no one, or when you actually manipulate in a very toxic way, when it doesn't matter who you have to upset or, walk over just to get what you want. The High Priestess, for example, combined with the Lovers or the Two of Cups can represent a soulmate kind of connection, a new friendship which has a very powerful karmic or spiritual basis. The High Priestess combined with Judgment, for example, or the World, or the Wheel of Fortune, can represent a massive karmic pivotal moment for you personally, or that the hand of fate, your destiny, takes care of that situation, or it is written in your, path that you have to walk on. The High Priestess combined with the Three of Coins, with the Four of Coins, Six of Coins, can represent like a karmic duty, a karmic service that you have to, for example, offer to another person. High Priestess combined with the Hermit can represent seeking the truth within yourself, learning from inner forces, inner wisdom. It can also represent that the answers that you seek cannot be found externally. May that represent books, may that represent spiritual culture, knowledge, the wisdom of the ancient. None of that may apply in your case. The only truth is the inner truth that you can basically find your answers within. The High Priestess, let's say combined with the Eight of Wands, can also represent like a very intense, sudden, quick manifestation of fate, which can get you to the answers that you seek or in the situation that you want to be in. The High Priestess, for example, combined with the Six of Cups, may both of these cards be reversed. It can mean a very strong psychological purge, or a cycle that has been playing out in your childhood, for example, repeating over again. or it can mean meeting a person from the very, very distant past, reconnecting with someone. The High Priestess combined with the 5 of Swords, 7 of Swords, the Devil reversed, for example, can represent that someone is lying to you, deceiving you. High Priestess combined with the Justice, or the Justice reversed, or the High Priestess being reversed, it can represent legal complications, legal problems. It can even represent a scam, a phishing scam, for example, someone wanting to deceive you, even in a very legal manner. High Priestess reverse combined with the Fool reverse, for example, can actually tell you do not risk, do not follow your gut feeling, your instinct or your intuition, because it can lead you into problems, into turmoil, into a very delicate and complicated situation, even legally. Or the High Priestess combined with the Tower card, well, that can tell you that some upheaval, some disaster, unfortunate event, the symbolism of the Tower, is entering into your life. But do not be afraid and do not misinterpret it, because there is a hidden blessing in it, or it's going to lead you into a state or a situation which is way beyond your expectations, in a very positive manner, of course. And last but not least, the High Priestess with the Moon card, for example, or with the 9 of Swords, or with the 4 of Cups, can represent the energy of depression, of anxiety, of severe worry. The High Priestess, for example, combined with the 5 of Coins, can represent that the stress in your life or your own mind is making you ill. It is causing hormonal imbalances within your body, which is ultimately leading to autoimmune diseases. It can warn you to reduce stress, to reduce pressure, which, elements in your life, relationships, connections, etc., the very negative effect that all of these may have on you, on your mind, especially the unconscious mind, which may lead to disease and physical discomfort. Now, I would like to close this 3rd episode of the Tarot course by presenting you a very well-known spread that can actually help us reveal secrets regardless of their nature. Now, before I get into the analysis of the spread, let me just start by saying that one of the most relevant symbolism of the High Priestess is, without a shadow of doubt, secrets. What is a secret? Well, a secret is something that is being kept from our conscious. May that be our own secret, where our beings keep something repressed in our unconscious so it can never surface, it can never be perceived by us, or it can simply mean other people keeping secrets. So this spread is called the Secret of the High Priestess, because it is meant to actually reveal the secret, to tell us through the language and the symbolism of the tarot what the secret is. Now, this spread can be applied either when you know full well that there is a secret being kept from you, regardless of how you know, how you suspect, but at the same time, it can also be used to clarify when the High Priestess appears in one of your spread in a very unexpected way, symbolizing a secret, and you can use this clarifying spread to know what that secret is all about. Now, why and how this works is a rather controversial subject, because some readers out there think that the High Priestess is the symbolism of an oracle spirit, a goddess. We can go back into ancient Greek mythology to this, or, ancient Egyptian mythology, because there were a lot of goddesses or sorceresses or female oracles, you name it, who basically changed the fate of the hero by sending them on the quest, or they helped other gods, or, their act of foresight, their prophecy, their wisdom, their inner magical power, call it whatever you want, changed, the world according to the legends, while other readers think that this high priestess became an egregore because so very many users of the tarot through the course of tens, maybe hundreds of years, invoked this energy. So basically they created it. They made it through the power of their beliefs, so to say. They basically infused it with life and a certain kind of autonomy where you can basically invoke this spirit, the spirit of the high priestess, to reveal the secret to you. Now, I'm not someone who usually follows, spreads, predetermined spreads, etc. I am someone who kind of embodies the chaotic nature of the high priestess, where, every act of divination, is correlated with chaos. So I allow chaos to deliver the message how it likes it. But even someone like me found a great practicality and usefulness in this spread. This was one of the spread I have learned for the very first time after I got tarot cards when I was 14, and it has helped me a lot of times in my life. It helped other people through me by revealing secrets or matters hidden from our consciousness. So if you take a look at the picture, at the graphic representation of the cover of this video, you can see the pattern and the different numbers. And now I'm going to explain what each position, each number signifies. Now, first of all, naturally, you have to invoke the spirit of the high priestess. Basically, just ask her to reveal her secret to you. Then shuffle your cards. Do whatever you do when you prepare for a reading, when you prepare for a spread. It totally depends on you how, when, in which way you do it. And then when you're ready to draw the cards, well, this is the pattern. 1 and 2 is the cross and the neck of the high priestess. In this spread, it represents the core, the essence, the main subject, the main energies of your question. 1 can be the subject, 2 can be the clarifier, or you can also, merge the symbolism of the 2 cards into 1. It can also represent the present moment energies, how things are. Then we head on to number 3, 4 and 5, which represent the 3 phases of the moon above the head of the high priestess. 3 represents the past of the subject, 4 represents the present, and naturally 5 represents the future. Now the card in 6th position represents matters, things, information, situations, etc. about the subject, about the question that we do know, the knowledge that we possess, the 2 pillars, of course. And 7 represents that which is hidden from us, which is not known by us, or not perceived in a very clear manner. Then the next card that we draw is the number 9 and not 8. 9 represents the secret of the high priestess, and it is placed below her cross, but it must not be turned face upward, so we must not take a look at the card. We must not know what that card is until we analyze the resolution, which is the 8. So the card in 9th position, the secret, should be analyzed the last. So now we have already drawn the secret, but we don't know what it is yet because we can only see the back of the card. And now we extract number 8, the resolution, and naturally that card can signify the chances, the overall energies of where this situation is going, the evolution, what path it's going to take, etc. And then we finally reveal the secret, so we turn the card in the 9th position, and that is the secret. Now there is two possibilities. If that card is a major arcana, then the High Priestess has told you her secret. That is the secret. And of course you can clarify that with other cards, and you can clarify it as with many cards as you like. Sometimes I draw 10 clarifiers. Each and every clarifier will just tell the story of that secret. It will add different elements into it, making it that much easier for us to understand it, to get a palpable picture of what that secret can be, how it's gonna affect us, or, it all depends on the nature and subject of your question. But if that card is a minor arcana, well then the High Priestess chooses not to reveal her secret to you. Now some people will close the reading there and then, so they won't even take into consideration the minor arcana no matter what it is, while other people take it as a hint, so it doesn't actually reveal her secret to you, but she might give you an advice, so you can take that minor arcana as an advice. Or if that card is an ace, as in the secret, number 9, well then the High Priestess is telling you that she doesn't really have to reveal her secret, because you're going to find out very, very soon. It is basically a fated thing that is going to enter your awareness, so don't even worry about it, because very soon, naturally, you are going to know what that secret is. Now the reason I have shared this spread with you is because I find it very, very effective, and as I say, there is either a spirit or an egregore actually influencing it, so it is that much more powerful, and anyone can basically appeal to it. But this kind of spread, the secret of the High Priestess, has so very many variations out there on the internet. You can find different expression, different representation. There are spreads with more cards. There are spreads which, interpret the position of the cards and the numbers in a different way. I just shared my personal methodology on how I use this spread, but if another similar spread inspires you and you are intuitively drawn to it, well then feel free to use that which suits you the most. Well, this concludes the 3rd episode of our tarot series. If you enjoyed it, please share and like this video. And also, if you'd like a personal reading, just log on to 1millionnights.com and find your dedicated advisor. And also in the month of September, we have a very special promotion where if you buy any of our prepaid packages, you get 10% bonus credit. Well, thank you once again. Until next time, bye for now.